Hi there, welcome to my channel. I'm Kira, this is Newt, and we're so glad you're here. Today I'm going to be doing a book haul for you guys. A lot of the books in this book haul are some recommendations by people here on BookTube, so this is kind of a BookTube Edition Book Haul, and I'll also be showing you who recommended them to me. These are all of the books that I have bought or received so far this year, from all the way to the beginning to now. Since this is a collective haul of all the books that I've got from like 6 to 7 months or so. I have read a couple of them, so I thought it would be fun to go through them, see if I read them or not, and actually see if I do read the books that I buy. I don't know how many books I got exactly, so we will see that at the end of the video, but let's get into it. I got the following books because of this Amazon sale back in March, which was 30% if you bought 3 books or more. So naturally, I bought 8. This is what happens when you watch BookTok and are easily influenced. The first book I wanted to talk to you about is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillick. I didn't really know a lot about this book, but I heard a couple of booktubers talk about it. And for some reason it didn't really speak to me. I also saw it in my local bookstore and I don't know, it didn't really intrigue me. I don't love the cover. It's just a little boring to me, so it didn't really speak to me. But then I heard the Book Leo talk about it a couple weeks ago. Don't really know when I saw this video, but I heard her talk about it and she described it as Avatar: The Last Airbender with a fairly light magic system based on cards. And that sounded really intriguing to me. She also said that this book has some darker gothic vibes, and I don't really read books like that, so I wanted to see if I would like it. Overall, I just heard really good things about this book, so I really wanted to try it out. And you know what? Let me actually tell you what this book is about. Maybe that will help. Just to be sure I'm not going to spoil you, I will read the back for you. This book is about Elspeth. She lives in a kingdom that is shrouded in mist. And for some reason, she has a monster living inside her head that she calls the Nightmare. He helps her protect her secrets and do other stuff, but magic doesn't exactly come for free in this world. Then she meets a highwayman and together they are going to try to rid the world of evil magic, especially because the nightmare inside her head is trying to take over her mind. This sounded really intriguing to me, but unfortunately I was a bit disappointed by the book. I thought it was a bit hard to get through at times. I thought it was a little bit boring. Some parts were really intriguing to me, like the magic system with the cards. That was really fun. I especially liked the ending, and it really intrigued me to see what would happen next in the story, but I don't know if I actually want to read the book, if that makes any sense. So I'm really intrigued to see how it goes, but I don't know if I want to read it. Before I read this book, I actually read a book I loved so much and I was in a bit of a reading slump, so I don't know if I actually was disappointed by the book or was just in a reading slump and it was just the wrong time to actually read it. So I don't know about that. I might try it another time and I might try to read the second one. I don't know yet, we'll see. I'm going to try to put this somewhere here. I have read this book, like I just said. So maybe we're going to try to make a pile with this to see which books I've read and which books I haven't. I was going to put it over here, but New thought it would be really great to just lay here. So this is as good as it's gonna get. The next book is The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. I think I saw Haley Fem talking about this book first in her Best Books of 2023 video. She said it was a really wholesome and whimsical book and that everyone should read it because everyone would like it. And that really intrigued me. And after that I saw a lot of other booktubers actually talk about the book as well. So I wanted to see a lot more about it. And I have heard people compare it to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but with books. And I really like Competitions and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So it sounded perfect. This book is about Lucy Hart, a teacher's aide. She loves books and would love to share her love for them. She gets a really special bond with a 7-year-old kid in her class, and she would love nothing more than to adopt the boy. She is also really obsessed with this book series from when she was younger. She really loves it and she is trying to share that love with Christopher. For some reason the author has stopped writing books in the series until one day he announces that there's a new book. But to get the book, you have to get into this contest at this remote island. And Lucy is one of the 4 lucky contestants who gets to compete for the manuscript. I thought it was really whimsical and I totally agree with Haley that it's so cute and wholesome. I think everyone should read this book, especially if you love books, like we probably all do. And if you were obsessed with a book series when you were younger. The next book is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I believe this book was described as Hunger Games on steroids, and personally that was all I needed to know. This book is actually about Payton. She lives in a world with elites and ordinaries. The elites have special powers and the ordinaries are just that, just ordinary. Payton is an ordinary but poses like an elite to blend into the kingdom. But one day she saves the prince and gets thrown into the purging trials, like the Hunger Games. And well, a lot goes on from there. A lot of people said that it was supposed to have a really good romance story. And usually I don't really care about romance stories, but I do love a little bit sprinkled into my fantasy. And this one was supposed to have a lot of tension and banter, and I do really enjoy that. So I really wanted to check it out. And I really did enjoy it here. I really like the romance in this book. On top of that, I'm not really a spice lover, and there isn't any spice in this book, which I really love. No hate if you really enjoy smut, I just don't. Sarah Caroli and Rachel Catherine's reactions to this book completely sold me on it, and I had to have it, so I immediately started reading it. I was instantly hooked by it. It was really fast paced, and I did really see the Hunger Games aspect. This book is filled with a lot of tropes, and some scenes are literal replicas from the Hunger Games or some other really popular books. But personally, I didn't really mind that because I really love those books, so it just felt quite familiar in here. I really liked it. After finishing this one, I immediately bought the second one, Reckless, but I was a bit let down by this book. I really enjoyed the beginning of it, but after that it just got a really predictable and repetitive in my opinion, which I didn't really like. And I know this is a really unpopular opinion, but I could not stand Kai in this book. I don't know what it was, but I didn't like him until the end. The ending was, I really liked him in the ending. Although the ending was really predictable to me again, so bit of a letdown. Because of that, I'm not sure if I'm going to finish the series, but it doesn't come out until April next year, so we'll see. The next book is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This year I really wanted to get into more sci-fi because I haven't read a lot of them, but every time I do read a sci-fi, I absolutely love them. And Haley Pham said she absolutely loves this book. She describes it as a Hunger Games in space, but said it's also so much more. I have heard Ashlyn talk about this as well, and she just really sold me on this. They both said it was a very wild ride and it really intrigued me, so I really wanted to read this one. In this book, the Earth is dying and Darrow is a miner on Mars who is trying to extract important elements from the surface to make sure that humans can live on it again. It's really dangerous to do this, and there are classes in this world, reds, golds, and some more. Darrow is a red, the bottom of the bottom, and that's why they are chosen to extract the elements from the surface. It's really dangerous, but someone has to do it. So he and the other reds are just trying to get by and not actually get hurt because they extract the elements to make sure that people can live on the surface again. But one day he realizes that that's actually a lie and the golds have been living on the surface for years and they don't actually have to do this. He realizes that the reds are just exploited, and understandably he does not go for that. So with the help of some mysterious rebels, he tries to become a gold and infiltrate them to take them apart from the inside out. But to do that he has to go to a command school, but the school is actually just a giant battlefield. So that's actually where the Hunger Games kind of comes in. I have already read this one and I loved it so much. I do have to say that it's a little hard to get into because they use a lot of words that are specific to the world. So in the beginning it was a little hard to understand for me, but it all gets explained pretty quickly. So after that I loved it so much. I ended up loving it so much so that I actually plan on reading the second one in the series quite soon. It's called Golden Sun and it's actually on the way here because I already ordered it. I can't wait to continue this series and I do really recommend it, but maybe do look up some trigger warnings because it is quite heavy. Hi there, Editing Kira here. While editing I actually realized I lost some footage, so let me just talk about the book right now. This is Renegades by Marissa Meyer. This is actually a dystopian YA book based on superheroes and I have loved Marvel ever since I was little, so it really spoke to me. I think it's a really cool concept. On top of that, this book is a sci-fi, which is a plus for me. This book is about Nova. She's an anarchist, which is the villain in this world, and she is out for vengeance because the heroes who were supposed to protect her and her family actually didn't. And we also follow Adrian, who is one of the renegades, so one of the good guys, and he believes in everyone, especially in Nova. So I thought it was a really cool concept. Everyone in this world has powers, like superhero powers, which just sounds so cool. We follow two POVs, Adrian and Nova, so we follow a bit of good and evil, which was really cool in my opinion. I really enjoyed both POVs actually, and this book is just so fast-paced and action-packed. It's like a play on good and evil, but sometimes the lines blur a bit, so much so that I even doubted who the real villains were in this story sometimes. I love the first book so much, and Rachel Catherine said that the series just keeps getting better, so naturally I bought the second one as well, and I totally agree. I think I love this book even more than the first one. After reading it, I loved it so much that my boyfriend actually bought me the third one in this series as well, and this was my favorite of the entire series, if that's even possible. I don't know how I loved every book more than before it, but I really did. The series has quickly become one of my favorites of all time, so I would really recommend it. The next book is The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This book was described as a YA Criminal Minds, and it sounded really interesting to me. I really like the concept, and I also really like the Inheritance games by the same author, so I decided to pick it up. Yucha! This book is about Cassie. She's a natural at reading people and figuring out the tiniest details about them. So one day the FBI comes knocking and asks if she wants to be a part of the Naturals program. This is a program with teens who all have special skills and abilities, and they are trying to solve some cold cases. But one day they realize there is an active serial killer on the loose, and they try to catch the serial killer. It's so interesting. The plot sounded so cool to me, and it's really fast-paced and addicting. I was reading this last night and I couldn't put it down, so I actually finished the book. And I liked it so much that yes, I have ordered the second, third and fourth in the series all at once. And the second one is actually coming tonight, so I will continue the series immediately. I do have to say that I did guess who the serial killer was, but not all the details around it, which is really cool to me because mostly I guess everything. So it was really cool that I didn't guess everything right. I really liked it and I can't wait to continue the rest of the series, which I'm going to do tonight. So the next book is The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. While making my reading journal at the start of the year, I really wanted to incorporate some anticipated reads, but I'm not really caught up on the subject, so I decided to watch the book roast video of anticipated reads of 2024. One of them was The Tainted Cup, and she described it as a Sherlock and Watson story meets fantasy, which sounds right up my alley, so I decided to immediately add it to my list. This is actually the first book that I haven't read, so I will try to read the summary for you. In an opulent mansion at the borders of the Empire, an Imperial officer lies dead, killed when a tree spontaneously erupted from his body. Even here, where continuous abound and the blood of the Levitans works strange magical changes, it's a death at once terrifying and impossible. Called in to solve the crime is Anna Dolabra, an investigator whose reputation for brilliance is matched only by her eccentricity. At her side is her new assistant, Dinius Cole, an engraver magically altered to possess a perfect memory. Soon the mystery leads to a scheme that threatens the safety of the Empire itself. For Anna, all this makes for a deliciously thorny puzzle. At last, something to truly hold her attention. And then, he'll just have to hold on for the ride. It just really sounds really cozy, and for some reason it also sounds like the perfect book for fall. At the time I saw a different cover for the book which I really liked, but one day I went to my local bookstore and saw this one and I knew I needed to buy it because I really love it. Just look at it. Look at all the mushrooms, and it looks really eerie and I really love it. I can't wait to get into this one, but I'm really excited. So I actually have to make a different pile for this one, so I hope you can see it. Can you see it over there? Not really. Can we try to... Yes, we can. The next book is The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by XCO, and I believe this book is based on some Korean legends, and I'm obsessed with Asian stories surrounding legends, myths and folklore, so it sounded really interesting. This book is about Mina, and everyone in her homeland knows the legend of the sea god. The legend goes that once the sea god meets his bride, the ravaging storms will finally cease to exist. So every year they sacrifice a girl to the seas, but every year the storm keeps coming. This year her brother's love is chosen, and she knows that this will break him, so she throws herself into the sea instead, and she is transported to the spirit realm. To save herself and her homeland, she has to help the sea god. Once there, she sees the sea god and sees that he is trapped in an enchanted sleep, so she has to try to get him out of it to save herself and her homeland. But there are people who don't want to wake the sea god, but she has to hurry because a human can only live so long in the spirit realm. This sounded so cool to me. I was immediately intrigued by it. It was compared to Spirited Away, and although I haven't seen it, I hear it's very magical and whimsical, and this book absolutely gave those vibes. Carrie from Carrie Can Read said that this book is really fairy tale like, and that she really liked the characters and thought it was a really sweet story. She said the ending grabbed her and she cried, and I really agree with that because I cried a lot during this book, and I loved it so much that I'm absolutely going to reread this soon. I also have a couple of books that I picked up myself or received as gifts and weren't really recommended by anyone, but I really wanted to talk about them, so I guess they are kind of miscellaneous. The next book I have for you is Elsewhere by Gabrielle Zevin. I picked this one up in my local bookstore. It was actually a staff recommendation and it sounded really good to me. This book is by the same author who wrote Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which was one of my favorite books of 2023. I have already read this book and I actually really enjoyed it. This book starts out a little weird, but I really like that about it. The main character is Liz and she's about to turn 16, but before she turns 16 she gets into a car crash and unfortunately doesn't survive it. That's not a spoiler, it's on the back of the book and it happens on one of the first pages, okay? Don't come for me. We follow her as she wakes up on a boat to Elsewhere. When she gets there, she realizes that instead of turning 16, she will turn 14, because in Elsewhere, everyone keeps getting younger and younger. This book was recommended as a very sad book, and I felt that, since it deals with grief and everything that happens after we die. I cried multiple times reading this book, and some of the quotes are really beautiful. I also really like that it's pretty short, so I really needed that after reading a really big series. So yeah, I really recommend, and also think that the cover is really pretty, and I have never heard someone talk about this. So hidden gem for me, perhaps. The next book I have is The Reappearance of Rachel Price. If you didn't know, this is actually by the author who wrote A Good Girl's Guide to Murder and 5 Survive, which are some of my favorites of all time. I have read all of her books and I am obsessed with every single one, so I actually decided to pre-order this book back in February. It came out on the 2nd of April, so of course I have already finished it. And after that I have heard some people talk about it. This book is about 18-year-old Belle, and she has lived in her mother's shadow for 16 years. Because 16 years ago her mother disappeared and she was the only eyewitness. But because she was 2 years old at the time, she doesn't remember anything about it. The case is dragged up again because her family decides to participate in a true crime documentary about the case, and Belle just really wants to be done with it. But just before they stop filming, her mother Rachel reappears again, hence the title. Holly Jackson uses mixed media in her books, and in this one it's a true crime documentary, which sounded really interesting. I really love her writing style. It's really fast-paced, intriguing, addicting. She's amazing at writing suspense, and I'm always on the edge of my seat, and this one was no exception. So I also really recommend this one. This video has just actually turned out to be a books I'd recommend video, which is unintentional, but I really like that I loved all the books that I've read so far this year. These aren't all the books that I've read so far this year, but I don't think there was a single really bad one in it. So that's pretty cool. The next book is Artemis by Andy Weir. I actually got this book from my boyfriend for our 5.5-year anniversary, and I hadn't really heard about this book yet, but I absolutely loved Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. It was one of my favorite books of 2023, I believe. And we watched the Martian movie together and we absolutely loved it. This book is about Artemis, the first city on the moon. The population is only about 2,000 people and most of them are tourists, but some of them are criminals. And we follow Jess, one of the criminals. She lives in one of the poorer areas on Artemis and she smuggles contraband onto the moon. But it doesn't really pay much. So one day when she's offered a chance to a lot of money, she jumps to it. The only thing she has to do now is make the perfect plan for it and execute the perfect crime. This is kind of a heist book, and as you can tell, as you can probably tell, it's a sci-fi, which is perfect because I wanted to read more sci-fi. Before starting a book, I usually check Goodreads. So my boyfriend actually also did it after he ordered it, and he was really worried that I wouldn't like the book because it only got 3.69 stars on Goodreads. But of course, I absolutely loved it. So much so that it actually put me in a bit of a reading slump after I read it. A lot of people don't like the main character and actually really criticize the author for writing a bad female character. But I really enjoyed her. She reminded me of someone that I know in real life, and that was really interesting to me. And I also thought she was really badass, but maybe that's just me. It has happened a lot that it's just me, so. On top of that, I really like the humor in this book. I have laughed out loud a couple of times, which was really embarrassing, but I really liked it. Andy Weir is known for putting a lot of scientific jargon into his books. I really enjoy it, because to me it feels like I'm learning something from the characters or with them. So I think that is really immersive. I understand why some people don't like it, because it can be really hard to understand sometimes, but I feel so accomplished and smart when I do understand what he's talking about. The setting was really fun and I personally love the characters a lot, so I would actually describe it as a heist in space. So if that's your thing, then definitely read it. The last book I wanted to talk to you about is The Grandest Game by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I am so sorry if the angles of this video have been all over the place, because for some reason today my phone decides to be full of storage every couple of minutes. So I have to reposition my camera every time. So sorry. Please bear with me. This is the last book. We're nearly there. You're nearly there. You could do this. So let's actually talk about The Grandest Game by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is actually the first book in a new series by her and is a spin-off of the Inheritance Game series. I believe this is set about 2 years after the final Gambit, in which Avery has decided to organize games in which people can win parts of her inheritance money. And I think this is the second game. We never get to see the first one, and we follow a couple of characters who have received tickets to actually join the game or have maybe found them in some way. Very mysterious. And we actually follow them as they try to get through the game, which is very interesting. I was actually pleasantly surprised by this one, because I was a little disappointed in The Brothers Hawthorne, because it was a little bit boring to me and it just lost the spark of the first one, of the first series actually. It's just, there weren't any riddles anymore. So I was pleasantly surprised by this one, because this one goes back to the roots and has a lot of riddles and all kinds of stuff like that, which I really liked. But I can't be the only one who thought it would be the entire game, not just the first part. I thought every book in the series was going to be a different game, you know, but I think we're going to see the entire game play out, which I also like. I just didn't expect it. And now I know I have to wait almost an entire year for the second book, which should be a crime. These are actually all the books I wanted to talk to you about today, so let's count how many I actually read. As you can see behind me, it's not really counting, because there's only one I haven't read, but I don't know how many books these were, so I'm going to count that for you. There are actually 15 books here. I'm really impressed with myself, because I read 14 out of 15 books. I normally don't buy this many books, but these have been an accumulation of the last couple of months, so I actually think it's pretty tame. I will talk more in depth about some of these books in my upcoming wrap-up, so stay tuned for that. Please tell me in the comments if you read any of these books. Have you liked them? Are you planning on reading them? But that was actually all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!